I'm sorry, I can't see because of the lights. Someone must have a question. You say.
Yeah, I purchased an admission and I got your magazine. And I looked through it and there's 2 speaker reviews in there. One $100,000 speaker and a $2,000 speaker. And I haven't had a chance to read the reviews yet. But I looked at all your graphs. And I'm looking at the graphs and there's like a topographical graph in there. And if I check one out with the other, to me they look very similar. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah, the question is that in the March issue of Stereophile, which people at the show have been given, there are 2 speaker reviews. One costs more than $100,000 a pair, the other $2,000 a pair, and in the graphs of their dispersion, i.e. how the sound changes to the sides, they look very similar. So can you tell the difference between the $2,000 a pair speaker and the $100,000 a pair speaker? Well, the answer is yes, because when you're measuring a loudspeaker, any one measurement cannot characterize the speaker. You're looking at the performance of any audio product is multidimensional. When you're plotting a graph, you have to choose just 2 of those, maybe 27 dimensions, one to plot against the average. In the case of the dispersion plot, you mentioned 3 of those dimensions, parameters. So when you read a measurement section in a Stereophile review, you have to try to look at all the graphs simultaneously. The way the sound varies to the sides, the way the sound varies up and down, the on-axis response, the bass extension, the waterfall plot, which shows you how much sort of resonance-induced coloration there is, the impedance, which shows you where there are cabinet resonances, how hard the speaker is to drive. You have to sort of look at all of them at once to try to get a feel for the speaker's overall performance. Now, I'll let you into a secret. There is a much easier way to do that, and that's to listen to it. Because that's what you're doing when you listen to a sound of an audio system. Your brain is integrating everything the speaker does at once on a source that's familiar to you, which is the music you love. So why am I publishing measurements in the magazine? Well, basically, I'm looking for, does the speaker perform according to the manufacturer's specifications? A lot of times it doesn't. How well engineered is it? Are there gross errors? Sometimes there are surprisingly gross errors in very expensive loudspeakers. In fact, if I had to take a leap of judgment right now, I would say that large, expensive loudspeakers have more large errors than small, inexpensive loudspeakers have small, relatively benign errors. So, and also, I'm looking for things which the speaker does wrong, which may then correlate with something my reviewer, one of these guys, has already noticed. And I have to take my hat off to my review team, because they don't see the measurements. They have no idea what I'm going to find when I measure a product, and yet they go ahead and they write about how it sounds anyway, even if there is always a possibility that my measurements might find that there's nothing to support what they say. Fortunately, it almost always does support what they say, but my hat's off to you guys for going ahead anyway.
I get to see those measurements when I get to see my review in proof form in PDF. And so I always cringe, because at least once a year in your text supporting and describing your measurements, there's always a line, I was surprised that Art Dudley didn't hear this. Oh, I forgot to put that in. I was surprised Art seems to be
But if we had a writer's response that Art could say, I'm surprised that the measurements did not pick up the fact. And so I guess it's the way it is.
Yeah, so, but then of course that brings them into a whole other subject, which is how do I judge equipment by listening to it? And it's very easy to say, well, there is an absolute sound out there, and all we have to do is compare the sound of the components in our system with that absolute sound. Unfortunately, there's the way of getting that absolute sound compressed and crammed onto the grooves of an LP or the pits of a CD or the data of an MP3 is not transparent. There are huge things which happen in recordings which will change what you hear. And so it's a kind of it sounds very glib to say compare it to the absolute sound, but it's not quite true that you can do that. Art, you've been working as a reviewer since, gosh, 25 years?
Yeah.
So how do you listen to a piece of audio equipment?
That has changed. It has changed somewhat over the years. I listen first and foremost for musical pleasure. I hate to sound like an old ninny, which I am sort of recovering ninny. I listen for being able to follow the melody. I listen for distortions and pitch relationships that keep you from being able to follow the melody. I follow the pacing, I follow the rhythm. Can I get into it if it's just dull and dead? Time to me is the most important component in music. It's what distinguishes music from sound. Does it move forward? Does it have a sense of flow as it goes through the system? If not, I do not go beyond go. To me, at that point, it's just, it's very difficult for me to work up any enthusiasm. At the same time, I admit, and this sort of speaks to what we were talking about before, I am very much less sensitive to colorations than, say, other audio enthusiasts or other reviewers. Sure, I hear them and they bother me to some extent, but I care less about them than I care about the temporal qualities. Can the speaker sound like music instead of just sound? That's much more important to me. But I suspect in saying that, it's going to differ for everybody.
Yeah, I think there are some real individual differences in what people look for and what bothers them and what impresses them. And Mark may be thinking of this, horn speakers, and I have a review of the Avant-Garde Uno Nano coming out maybe in July if the measurements get completed on time. And I've had the review of the original Uno before. And I've had people listen to my system with those horn hybrids in it, and the majority of them never heard any speakers like that. They look at them and they say, oh, very strange. And the ones that have heard of them, at least, they say, well, their horns have to really sound very colored. And some people will go on from there and say, well, yeah, they sound nice, but there's that horn coloration, I can't get past it. Others will listen to it and say, well, these just sound to me like music. I don't know what people are talking about when they say coloration. This sounds wonderful to me. It has life, it has rhythm, it has a sense of aliveness that ordinary speakers can't seem to get. So which person is right? Well, it's whatever opinion corresponds to yours, and you may have yet another opinion, and on balance you may say, this gives me so much of what I want that this is what I want to listen to. Or you may say, this one aspect of performance, it's no deal for me. And the same kind of thing in other areas. One of my other interests is photography. And if you read some of the forums, if you had interest in digital photography and the DP review forums, people will say, here's a camera that at ISO 400 or 800 has unacceptable noise. I will not buy this camera because it has too much noise, forget it. And others would say, look, first of all, at ISO 80, it's pristine, there's no noise, and 400, 800, yes, there's noise, but it doesn't bother me. It looks to me like what film had, and that's perfectly okay with me. And those are the different opinions that people have. And the person who says, I want 800 or 1600 without noise, I say, fine. Buy the top of the line Canon DSLR for $8,000 or buy the top Nikon, and it will have much less noise. But that's what you need to do if that's so important to you.